Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Better Opinion. We are once again very late, big gaps, terrible things have happened in other people's lives, this time, not mine. But all that aside, I am still your host, Kevin, joined once again by my co host, Mansur. At least I believe that's who you are. You've been going through some sort of metamorphosis. You seem smaller than I remember, and he might be an imposter.
It's not as cool as this story, unfortunately. I'm not turning into a bug creature. That would be very cool. I'm just turning smaller.
I'm just getting smaller.
Unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. It'd be much better if you were like transforming into some sort of alien monster.
Yeah,
instead
that would be so cool. I could get so much more skins, but
better than this whole heart health thing.
Yeah, I think it's a bit overrated.
But here we are.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, how's it going, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been learning a lot of things, learning how to program in game engines, specifically Godot, and I've seen that Steam is trying to release 3 new pieces of hardware.
As of 5 minutes before this conversation, I also saw that.
Yes, and
listen, I'm just gonna put it out there. He wanted to talk about the Steam stuff. I only knew that other people were talking about it, so I watched the trailer 5 minutes before this.
I made him do it.
He made me watch the trailer. So you want to talk about Steam, about Valve supremacy? What do you want to talk about regarding this?
Specifically, I have an idea in my mind of what this will do in gaming and what this could be good for.
Okay.
But the problem is I am too technical and I know too much about the technical side and all the different Linux sides that I am a bit biased. I want to actually hear what you think just seeing the trailer, because that's how most people will see it.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I can give my initial reaction having just saw it. Seems really cool. Mm-hmm. I think this isn't a surprise. I always knew that they were going sort of in this direction with Steam OS and stuff like that. The reality is that this is what always was needed, right? There's been a gap in, I would say, the gaming space, the technology space for a while that's been getting worse. It wasn't clear because you still had PlayStation, you still had the Switch, you still had the Xbox. But we saw with the Steam Deck is that, the problem with the Switch is, you got to suck Nintendo's dick, right? And pay them $1 million and have them decide that they hate you. PlayStation is worthless. I won't touch any of their products. They're all bad, overpriced, not worth it. And Xbox is just a shitty computer with a subscription service to use your own internet.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was always the case. But in history, the reason consoles were great is because of a couple things. One of which was they were just less expensive than a computer, but let you play video games. And those video games were optimized for that system. So you could pop in a disc and play the game. Right? And it worked. Now, maybe the game was bad or whatever, it wasn't programmed well, but generally that was what you could expect. And so that's the history of when consoles really dominated. It was very plug and play. Controllers are easy to understand. There was no installing, it was easy for everyone, right? Now we're in an era where literacy on computers is much higher. Your average person can install things and get it running and play video games. Yeah. And so when you start to have the lowest end PC be cheaper than the average console, and the PC gives you everything that you need, everything that you want to play, you can probably play, you start to wonder what the point of these consoles are. And that's why these consoles have died out. Nintendo has managed to keep a stranglehold by having a few people who foolishly believe that they're worth giving their money to, with all these in-house exclusives and nostalgia, despite continuing to release garbage like these Pokemon games. But you see how Microsoft, they've abandoned the war completely. They're trying to offer some other service to try to make it worthwhile. There was a gap. People don't want Windows because Windows is shit. Linux, as we've discussed, great alternative, still not quite there for the average consumer. Yeah. Right? So there's this, and maybe one day it will, now that Windows has truly shot themselves in the foot with Windows 11. Yeah. Some people may say otherwise. You're just wrong. It is. Nobody likes it. People who've upgraded, the first thing they did was make it look like Windows 10, are frustrated with all the bullshit in the ads. They shot themselves in the foot. They made a mistake. This is the downhill from here, right? So one day someone's going to make Linux. They're going to make a Windows that's Linux, and it's just going to be plug and play. And we don't need to get into like, oh, but there is that. It's like, well, yeah, but not quite.
Yeah. The biggest problem with Linux is you have to install it.
Right. You have to install it. And that might sound, to everyone who's technologically literate, that sounds like, well, who cares? And I go, well, everyone really. We're unfortunately the minority, right? Even if it doesn't feel like it.
I'll be honest, Windows is one of the worst OSs to install, but everyone has it because you already get it.
You just get it, yeah. You just automatically get it.
Yeah.
And so what does all this have to do with this? Well, having watched that trailer, I was neither impressed nor did I think anything negative, because it was exactly what I expected to happen. You're telling me that I have designed a cube. Within this cube is absolutely everything you need. It is compact and completely functional. It has all the room for expanded storage. SD cards are insanely cheap for how much storage they give you. I mean, massive, and it will work completely with your Steam library. It will plug and play. Yeah. It just works. Todd Howard, it just works, and it actually does.
So hopefully not Todd Howard, it just works.
Yeah, well, but the point is that like I don't think, because the Steam Deck was good, because Valve seems to really put effort into everything they've put out. Yeah. We can have our complaints about Valve and the number 3 and all this stuff, but the reality is notice that they didn't do the number 3. It's 3 new items, but it's 4 items. Yeah. See, they dodged it. They dodged the 3 again.
But they did say the number 3. They did,
which is a mistake. They shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I think that the idea of it is so well timed, and it's going to do really well because Steam already, everybody uses it, and I think it's going to be a piece of hardware that works. I think it's going to work exactly how they say, and it's going to fill that niche of it's a computer. It's not a console. You're not putting in a disc and having it install and then download from Xbox Live that you pay them a subscription for. No, Valve got their money when you bought all those video games. So you just have your games. You can just install those games and then they run, and they're computer games. Yep. And that is very good. Like, I don't know. I don't want to use the word impressive because I'm not impressed. I just am surprised that everyone else failed to realize that the market for a computer that runs your games was available.
Here's the thing. I'm glad you went first, because I know I have way too much history with Linux, and I have way too much knowledge about these things to not be biased. And I wanted to know what the average consumer is like. Even if you are a bit more,
I'm probably a little too knowledgeable to be considered the average consumer.
You are probably a bit more knowledgeable to be the average consumer, but you kind of fit the bill a bit more than I do. Much more.
You were the kind of guy who used to work for me. I'm the guy who gave you the project. And I managed your project. You made it happen. I knew your job this deep so that I could help you do your job.
Yes.
So I understand this stuff, but my job as a product manager was not to make the product. It was not to understand every tiny detail. It was to understand how to help you do your job, and also how to make a product for the consumer. So I also had to understand the consumer.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The most important product is, as we have talked about, the Steam machine here.
Right.
Because it is a baseline. It is a baseline that all developers can look at and is like, I need it to run on there.
Right.
Now, there are 2 big problems that I'm worried about because I really want this to succeed.
What are the problems?
The problems is they said it runs games at 4K 60.
Okay.
With FSR. And the other problem is it has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Now, to explain why this is a problem, 8 gigabytes of VRAM for it feels like 5 years has not been enough for modern games to run sometimes even at 1080p.
Here's the thing that I know, and you can counter me on this because you may know more than I do. One of the biggest issues in technology has been for quite some time that even if companies make them to work together, one company is not making all of the parts to work together seamlessly with programs that are meant to work specifically on that thing. This is why consoles worked well way back in the day. And this is what was always good about Macs, right? Yeah. Macs have a ton of problems. I would never recommend go buy a Mac. Don't. But back in the day, before Steve Jobs died and all quality went downhill, the big value of Mac was that every piece was designed, manufactured, and built to go together. Versus, Grimbly did this and Pirate did that and Bird Software did this, and all these things they're meant to fit together, but they don't necessarily go together.
Yeah, that's perfectly true. And that's why I'm not sure if my worry is valid or not, but it's that the understanding that usually 8 gigabytes of VRAM is not enough. But the thing is, everything is so closely coupled that may not be a problem. And Valve also is like control of the entire software stack. They make the operating system. They make Proton. They work with a lot of other people who might even contribute for free because they want this to work. And they have a track record of even things that don't work well on Windows on launch works well on Linux.
Right.
One good example is, do you remember Elden Ring on launch?
Yeah.
It was very stuttery. It was not very good.
No, it was not.
But on Steam Deck, it was smooth. Well. It was like this. It was not as powerful as I think it was 4090s at the time or any of that stuff. But the thing is, because Proton was on top of it, they fixed
what does Proton do?
Proton is a sort of layer. So when a program does anything, it asks the operating system, hey, I need you to process this. Go to the GPU and process this. Proton is in between. It says, okay, you asked for a Windows thing to do this. I'm going to turn this into a Linux thing to do it and get back to you. It's a translation layer. It's like a Babelfish.
So the reason I'm asking is because I remember how bad Elden Ring was, and I remember I specifically had to go in and change the way it cached shaders to fix it. I had to I forgot what I had to do exactly. I had to change a setting, and then I had to change the way it caches the shaders, and then I also had to make it unlimited.
Yeah.
And then it ran sort of better.
Yeah.
Right. So I was curious what Proton exactly does, because it was clear that it was just the game was not communicating appropriately.
Proton does a lot of nice things that kind of makes the experience smoother. It may even fix game issues that you haven't thought about. Some older games that don't even run well on Windows may run flawlessly on Proton. But take into account, this is a case by case.
Right.
It's not necessarily for everything. Someone has to go in and fix that thing. You have to report it, and it has to be fixed. And it may not be onto the newer version. So there are caveats. It's not like a magic button, but it is very good at what it does. Which is kind of making it so that a Windows program runs well on Linux. And are you familiar with Vulkan?
I only know that it is a thing and that you choose which drivers you want. Yeah. And sometimes Vulkan is good, and most of the time I hate it.
Here's the thing. So why people are so excited about Vulkan is the idea is that it's lower level, and so you could technically get more performance out of it, especially when you have GPUs that are Vulkan enabled. So when you are using Vulkan on newer GPUs, AMD GPUs are very good at this.
It's about their AMD GPUs.
AMD GPUs. And the drivers on Windows for AMD GPUs are not that great, but it's a different story on Linux.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah, but this is my problem is I don't really like NVIDIA anymore, overpriced, under quality.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
And when any of my friends who have AMD GPUs try to do anything, they have to spend 3 times as long troubleshooting that I have to.
Yeah.
To get it fixed.
NVIDIA's getting there on Linux. NVIDIA is actually trying to change their drivers to be up to date. That's going to be a problem moving forward.
Well, here's the reality.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to move to Linux
Yeah.
There are people going to disagree with me. You're wrong. It's too late. Everybody, because here's the thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about business, right? Any good product manager knows this. Is that there's a limit. To some degree, the customer is not always right, right? So that statement, the customer is always right. It's actually customer is always right on matters of taste. You can't tell them what they like, but they're not always right. The reality is you'll realize often that the customer doesn't know what they're talking about. So there's a degree of, well, we can just do this. We've got them, so we can just do this, and they'll tolerate it, right? Because we still give them something they want. But there's a limit to that. And for a while now, Microsoft has continuously, it's kind of like, you can talk about this with politics. We're not going to get into politics, but you can talk about this with politics. You can talk about this with anything. There's a level of tolerance people have for, I'm making a hand gesture that's on the table so you can't see it. There's a level of tolerance people have that you can bump up against and they won't leave you because you do what they like. It's inconvenient. You sort of like assign units to all the things. This is how many units of value each of these things have. And you have as much tolerance as all the value this all brings. But if you go too far, you lose them. And once you lose someone, it's incredibly difficult to get them back. So what's happened is that Microsoft has continuously pushed updates to be lower performance because they're using more of your hardware to run their stupid bullshit in the background that nobody wants. I don't want you logging what kind of porn I look up. You don't need that data because you're not going to sell it anyway because nobody's getting you but you do it anyway. You're putting ads on my literal advertisements on my desktop. And now you want me to go to Windows 11. Underperforms, looks like shit. You made a bunch of changes nobody asked for. And runs even worse, for programs just run worse on it. People who have been loyal have all said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And so while some people have done it, here's what's really going to happen. For a number of years, people are going to continue to use Windows 10, maybe a year, maybe two. People are like, oh, the security. Your computer's never safe. Get that out of your head. If you think that Windows is saving your life every time they do an update, you're a fool. You should be doing other things to be safe. That's going to keep you safe much longer than any Windows update. But they're going to stick with it until eventually it truly is too out of date. And then they're going to switch to Linux because it's free. Because now that the gap in the business environment exists, someone is going to go, oh, there's a real need now for this thing. I'm just going to make it.
I think that's why the Steam Machine is the most important thing, because now people just have a device they can try. And the perfect thing about it is that they have worked so hard to make this console-like experience that it's some games are not going to work.
Yeah, some games are not going to work.
But
some games didn't work on Steam Deck.
Some games didn't work on Steam Deck. But
some games don't work right now anyway.
Some games don't. Yeah. I say that all the time on Windows. But here's the thing. Because now there is this thing that if everyone buys it, you will now have this thing that developers will work. I need to get my thing working on the Steam Machine. Not only that, they might not even make Windows versions of their games if enough people get on Linux. It's like, well, it's now Windows is 3% market share. I'm going to make a Linux specific version. It's going to kind of flip the dynamics. All this stuff with anti-cheat and that's stuff is going to go away. Because this solves the number one issue, the chicken and the egg. You need people for like software developers to support it.
Yep.
And if this gets people, then it's going to solve that issue. That's why price for this thing is very fucking important. And I hope it's less than $600. I hope it's less than $500.
It needs to be cheaper than if I went and built my own machine.
It really needs to be.
That's what it needs to be. I need to be looking at the cost of building a computer and the cost of the Steam Machine when my objective is to play video games and say which one is more worth it, right? That's the thing. I have to know. And guess what? That's likely because these fucking graphics card companies have gotten so high off of their own fumes that graphics cards cost more than they should.
Yep.
Right? The whole Bitcoin bullshit made it so, because it used to be you could SLI two of the cheapest cards that NVIDIA made, and it'd be an insane machine, and it was $400, right? Now you can't do that, right? You have to pay $1,000-something for their top of the line graphics card that also doesn't have any safety measures. Do you remember that? Do you remember New World? And everyone blamed.
Yeah.
It was sort of New World's problem, but not really. What happened is that the reason the what was it, the 4090?
Yeah.
The 4090 kept melting is because the developers for New World made a mistake. The main menu screen did not have a cap on its FPS. And so the program kept trying to just go to whatever the highest was. And the graphics cards, every other graphics card they ever made says, oh, well, I can keep going, but then I'll burn out. So I just stop here. This is the best I can do, right? But not the 4090. For some reason, it had no stops. So it just kept going until it melted. It was just like, I can keep going.
Yeah. You know,
Off of the cliff.
Here's one nice thing people don't know about Linux is you don't have to think about installing drivers. You actually just press update and everything updates.
That's crazy.
Like I don't know if you make yourself a gaming PC, other than GPU drivers, what do you have to install drivers wise?
Other than GPU drivers?
There are other things you need to install.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of things I need to install when I
But
start
specifically for your motherboard, you need to install for your Ethernet. You
Yeah.
need to install for all that other stuff. On Linux, that's just part of the system. It's already installed.
It's already installed.
You don't go to a website to install anything on Linux. You have on these like consumer friendly versions, you just have an app store. I install Fedora for like my uncles when they need something, because you just go on like the basically it's the Google Play Store and you install what you need. You look for it there. The only problem is open source naming schemes are shit. So there's that. But other than that,
this is mouse. What? Oh, does this affect my mouse? No, it's like it installs drivers for Ethernet. I don't know. Like it has nothing to do with what you're.
They need to fix that. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of things there that people don't know exist that makes Linux easier than you'd think. The problem is compatibility with a lot of things, like even like hardware drivers, like your Elgato devices, they don't have Linux drivers. They might not work if you convert to Linux.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever thought about that.
Because I mean they're outdated now. But
they're outdated. But when you buy a new thing, you have to think to yourself, will this work on Linux?
Well, this goes back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So you know, I feel like in this conversation, you're kind of talking about the potentials, whereas I'm talking about the inevitables, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I see happening, right? I'm thinking, I mean, again, this is what happens when you get an engineer and a project manager in a room, right? Is the way I'm viewing it is I'm looking at the market, and I knew this was coming. I knew that eventually these Goliaths have been shooting themselves and the customer in the foot. It's that fucking joke from you know the Philip Andre show.
Yeah.
It's like Derek Andre. I forgot the guy's names. Eric Andre. There we go. Derek, Eric, whatever. Philip. Where did I get Philip? Eric Andre show where he shoots the guy and then says, "How could they have done this?" Right? It's like they repeatedly slap the customer in the face and say, "Why did you make me slap you?"
Yeah.
You know, and now the products are so shit that but they've survived off of no alternative.
Yeah.
And now Valve has come up and they've said, hey, we're a weird company run by a reclusive autistic fat man, and we have no bosses, so we just do whatever we want because we're so rich that we don't care, and we have just decided to make something that doesn't suck. And it's not perfect, but it doesn't suck, and we're so rich, we're not really trying to because we have no shareholders. So we're just going to make a thing, you know, because this is the thing. People say, well, one of Valve's downsides is they make so much money off of Steam that they don't do other stuff. And I go, well, that's also its upside is that their developers just do whatever they want because there's no demand from shareholders. And not to end your thought, but to just make the point that I think that realistically, you know, this is going to be the push. I knew this was going to happen, is that these products were so shit, there was no alternative. And now there's an alternative. And what this is going to do is, like you said, it's going to create that market share where then, you know, when a developer is looking to develop something, they're not They're not saying, oh, God, I love Windows. What they're thinking is, this is where all my customers are. But now if they go, oh, that's actually not where all my customers are, it's going to start shifting, and they're going to start doing both. At first they're going to go, well, we're designing for both. And then eventually they're going to go, well, we're designing for Linux, right? That's really what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft has shot themselves in the foot. I said it. I know it's a cliche, but that's what they've done.
Yeah.
Sony, you can just write them off. As an organization, I don't know where they're going. The garbage heap, probably.
Yeah.
Their physical products are... When I look at a TV, I don't think Sony TVs anymore.
Yeah.
When I think Sony physical hardware, I do not think of... I think Walmart.
I'm not
Sears.
excited about any console. But I'll be honest, when I saw... I wanted you to see it first because this is the first time I've actually been really excited about hardware in a long time.
Well, I'm not excited about consoles either.
I know.
But this isn't a console. This is a computer.
Yeah.
They're selling you a computer. They even showed that in the trailer. They said, run whatever fucking software you want. They didn't say fucking. They should have.
Yeah.
Because it really would have emphasized that this is Valve.
Yeah.
And they don't care. They don't need to care.
And I don't think you knew this about the Steam Deck, but other people made competitive devices, and Steam specifically made it so that SteamOS worked on those devices. Xbox released their shitty handheld, and a lot of people switched to SteamOS because it ran better and it was a better experience.
Because that's Valve's goal is not, they're not Apple. They're not trying to create a closed ecosystem. They're saying, they did this when they first made the what was it? The Valve, not the Index, the Oculus. The Vive, the first one they made.
The Index is the Index.
The Index, yeah. It was the Valve Index was the first one. Sorry, I lose track because there's like so many different ones.
Yeah.
The first one they made, their objective was never to be the owner of VR.
Yeah.
It was to create something that developers could start messing with and use it however they see fit, right? And the goal, that product was never even meant to be a customer facing product.
Yep.
You could buy one, but it was just meant to be for whoever wanted to develop with it. And Valve doesn't need to. This is, I know I keep talking about this, but this is the business motivation. Businesses are motivated by whatever the incentives are for how they work as a business, how they're structured. Valve is structured in such a way. They do not have shareholders. They do not have bosses. They only have the things they standard need, right? So like a head of HR, for example, things that they need legally, a company lawyer, a CEO.
Yeah.
But the way that they function, you can agree or disagree with it. There's a dumb documentary, but it because they make so much money off of Steam by just being a value first storefront, they have no motivation to be shitty. They don't need to cut costs because they're not trying to meet some arbitrary standard. They're not paying out to anyone. They don't have a fiduciary responsibility to any shareholders. Because that's the reason. The reason these companies keep needing to be more and more profitable, it's not even just personal greed. It's there's someone they answer to.
Microsoft specifically has this stupid deal where they need to make 30% profit every fucking year for Xbox.
Right. And so Valve makes so much money that it doesn't matter, and no one to pay out to other than their own people who are all already making way more money than they would in any other position at another company. They don't have a reason to ruin their business model. So they create things with a different objective. And you can see this in like small game companies. We've talked about No Man's Sky on here, right? Like, why did No Man's Sky recover? Because No Man's Sky was a small closed business and they were able to just...
They wanted to make a cool game.
They wanted to make a cool game, and they had any other studio would have just folded because the people who own it would have folded it, but they didn't need to fold it. They had the means to do what they wanted to do and turn it around, which you can't do with a public organization nearly as easily because there's a different financial structure, different ownership structure. So Valve keeps creating things that are open for anyone. And that's not a tactic to take control. It is someone in their business said, I want this thing to exist. And then Gabe said, cool.
I like it too.
and then they did it, and that's it. Is someone said, I want a handheld that is a computer to exist. They made it. Someone said, I want an operating system for gaming on Linux to exist. So someone made it. Now someone said, I want a computer that works, that is small and functional, that does everything we want it to exist.
Yeah.
So they made it. And that is why it will succeed, is because there will be no limit on other people being able to go, I want to do that too.
And this makes me very excited because there's only 2 companies that are doing things like this, that very consumer-friendly systems, and it's Valve and it's Framework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Framework's really cool. We haven't talked about it much, but
Framework is a company that I want to last forever and keep their mission statement. I love the idea of a laptop that I can upgrade.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's the biggest problem with laptops is you can't upgrade them.
Yeah.
You can't change, can't even replace things. Remember, my graphics card on my old laptop burnt out, and we couldn't fix it
Because it's soldered on.
It's soldered on, so there's no replacing it. Even if I could get the part, there's no replacing it.
You'd have to replace the whole motherboard, and in that case, you might as well buy a new laptop.
Yeah, you got to start from scratch at that point. So that's exactly it. And I agree. I mean, here's the way that it's always worked. If you look at the history of business, Titans show up, Titans control everything. Things become shit because nobody can challenge them. Things become too shit. Someone shows up and says, hey, I actually made something that isn't shit. And it ends up becoming popular enough that it replaces it. And for a while, sometimes they buy it up and then shitify it. But if you go back and look through history, it's like a pattern, just a wave pattern of up and down, and we're at the upturn.
It's gonna be horrible when we go down.
It is.
I want this to succeed. There's a lot of other cool things I'd like to talk about, but I don't think the audience it's worth it for the audience.
They may not understand.
Yeah.
I may not understand.
Yeah.
I'll sort of understand.
Because the headset itself is also very cool. You can just play games on there, and it's on a mobile processor.
I do think when I saw the video and it was like it was generating a altered reality screen for you, so it was projecting a screen in a way that made it seem like there was a screen in front of you.
Yeah.
I was like, that's really cool. You're sitting on your porch, you got a controller in hand and the headset on, and it looks like there's a widescreen TV in front of you. I was like, that's so neat.
Yeah, the idea is that you can just play your games there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be VR. And I really like that idea. But the other cool thing is it's an ARM processor. What people don't understand from that is all games are made for desktop processors. That means that when the game runs and it sends like instructions to the computer, it expects specifically a desktop processor to handle them. You need emulation to make this work. And that is like a huge deal, because not only is it going through like the Proton layer, it's also emulating it. And the fact that they can get this to work on such a small system, it's like this small computer in front of your face is extremely impressive. And the other impressive thing that they have is the Wi-Fi streaming to your headset, because the technology they have is that so that it only renders very well where you're looking, so it makes the stream
reduces the bandwidth, because the amount of information it has to transfer, it doesn't seem like it, but because your brain is going to fill in the outer part, so only where your eyes are looking is it going to really be super clear, which reduces the total amount of bandwidth used.
Yeah, and people have said they've tried to like try to see it, but they couldn't find it, which really impressed me, because not only do you have now this VR headset that is just the headset and these controllers, you don't have you don't have to have like a huge room to use this. I don't know if people realize this. You can just anywhere have these controllers and do it. You don't need to like have this whole setup, multiple cameras, large room, and all of that stuff. It makes it more accessible to more people.
Well, this is I mean, it's going to get better and better, because I mean, like we're going to reach a point where it's a tiny little thing, because this is how anything develops, right? You create something. It is the best version that can currently exist, because you said to yourself in development, here's my dilemma. My dilemma is I need to track the person. To track the person, I have to create a space where they're tracked in. That's where we get the multiple cameras. So you did that. You created that solution. You proved it worked. People liked it. So then someone said, all right, now I've got a new problem. The new problem is that I have to have all these cameras. What is my way of removing that problem using the same concept? Now I've put multiple cameras externally and created a system by which it's measuring the space and producing these results. You know, that is very, very cool. Yeah. And I think I'm interested to see. I keep saying whenever anyone's like, Kevin, what do you think about VR? As I go, dude, I'm going to have so much fun as an old man playing Sword Art Online. Like, it's gonna happen. We're not there yet.
I also mentioned to you that Valve has another company that they do like Neuralink related stuff. I don't know how many people know about this. I think it's called Starfish. Starfish, where they have non-invasive,
because there's a starfish grappled around your brain.
Yeah, because it's a non-invasive neural interface from what I read about it. And I was like, why is no one talking about this? What?
Because Valve doesn't feel... This is what they always do. They don't really make a big deal about things that aren't ready to give to anyone, because they don't need to keep shareholders happy. Remember, we can go back to that. Why do these other companies have to talk about the new teledildonics project? And when someone's like, cool, can me and my friend fuck each other in the ass remotely right now? And they go, well, it's not ready. You know, but they need to keep you excited, because they don't want the shareholders to be like, why are we spending $10 billion on dildos that are producing no profit? Well, one day this will be the most advanced remote teledildonic project in existence, and we will make a ton of money, but it's not there yet. Valve doesn't have that problem. They don't have to answer to anyone but themselves, so they don't need to tell you until they're ready to show you.
Yeah.
Until they can show you that them fucking each other in the ass remotely, they don't.
I think it's inherently pretty. I like the idea.
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, teledildonics is amazing. By the way, that's a real term.
I can't wait to see
teledildonics. Yes, that's a real thing.
Really?
Yes. There are real sex toys you can buy right now that are real time. You control them from super long distance. It's called teledildonics.
You know, I am impressed by the technology. We've truly come a long way.
They're coming a long way. The distance is really far between the two people who are coming.
I hope one day we can come from space.
We can.
Houston.
We have lift.
No problem.
Houston, we have liftoff, baby. No, but that's my point. Right? Is that they don't have to get you excited for a thing that doesn't exist yet and keep you excited. The whole reason companies do that is because they need to stave off having the project canceled for not producing money yet. Because stupid people who run companies, and they are stupid, I mean that. I'm not just being angry. They are not smart.
Yes.
And I know because I've dealt with them, is that they look at a spreadsheet and they see a negative and they go, oh, negative bad, plus good.
Yeah.
Why are we spending money? Well, because we're developing a new product. We should never spend, only earn.
It's so weird.
And then they shit their pants because they're monkeys. And that's what happens. That's really what happens.
I think weirdly the thing that has kept technology back the most is the economy. It's such a weird thing, and it's because we're
the current economy. Yeah, the stock market investor economy, because things aren't ready till they're ready, and people who aren't involved don't understand what's happening. So they don't understand. I've experienced this firsthand, where I had to pull a leader aside and say, like, do you understand? They're like, well, why is this taking so long? Like, do you understand how it works? And then they go, yes. And I go, explain it to me. And then they did. And I said, that's not how it works. Let me walk you through it. And at the end, they're like, oh, I see. I'm like, yeah, so you're expecting 30 minutes for an 8-hour activity. It's 8 hours because it's physically impossible to make it less. Can you make it less? I can't. And then they go, no. And have you talked to your boss about this? Yes, but you keep putting pressure on them. So they don't listen, and this problem keeps happening. And that's what these people are. They just see, so they see negative number, and they go negative number means losing money. Money only comes in. Money never goes out, which is why we have to reduce wages, because paying people is losing money. They should just want to do it for free.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. They really think this way. And so they have to convince the chimpanzees in a cage who wear ties and call themselves investors happy by showing them flashy pictures. It's like, look at these two people fucking each other in space. One day this will make $1 trillion. And they go, oh my God.
And then we're adding AI.
I can't wait. AI. I love AI. Oh, say blockchain. Say blockchain again. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember when blockchain was causing stocks to just shoot through the roof?
It's what's happening with AI now.
Yeah, it's true. We're gonna
AGI.
This is half me talking about how much I'm excited for Steam and half me complaining just about business, because I'm not kidding. I got approached back when I was still in charge of video stuff at a company. I got approached by another team from the head office in another country, and they're like, "This is something we want to do." And I said, "Okay, well, let's talk about the process." Now, I understand what actually has to be done to do this project: pre-production, production, post-production. We got into a meeting room, and there's like 8 people there, and I'm like, "Who are all these people?" And they're going through it all. Half of them seem super uninvested, and they're like, we want to integrate AI tools, and I was like, "Okay, so what does that mean?" I actually asked the question, "What does that mean?" It's like, "Well, Jared has AI tools that we want to facilitate to create these learnings." And I was like, "What AI tools? You want to make some videos. In these videos, there is instruction. The instruction is so that the learner can pass a test. We can do this by having an instructor talk to a camera and then edit the video to put slides visually for the learner. We can use a program to make it a little more interactive, to create buttons and things so they can do tests in the application, none of which requires ChatGPT. So, what AI tools?"
Jared is the AI tool.
There was none. They didn't have any. What they had is that they've been investing money into investigating the latest half-finished garbage that some company has put on the internet. But that's everything. Everything is, we got to integrate AI. We got to integrate AI until the teledildonics. The AI learns the circumference of your anus to maximize the bandwidth. That's what it is.
The worst part is that these are interesting things and they could be useful, but the problem is that they're so afraid that if they don't have it, they will lose out on something, but they don't know what it is. They don't know what they're losing out on.
Well, it's because it's all hype. Here's the actual truth. You may not know this. Other people have been talking about it. The stock market sure has. Because contrary to my own complaints about the stock market, I, of course, invest. It's free money.
Yeah.
But the thing is that right now, all these AI companies are just handing each other money.
Yes.
So it's a circle. Let's make up some numbers just to give the example, because it is correct, but the numbers won't be accurate. So there's $100 billion of business happening, but only 10 billion actual dollars. And they're taking turns holding the $10 billion in a circle to make it seem like it's a huge business. But there's actually only $10 billion, and it's just rotating between 10 companies, right? Each one worth $10 billion to make $100 billion in worth, but they're just loaning each other the same money in a circle or paying each other in a circle.
And anytime any small business comes up with AI, it's like, we're going to buy you.
We're going to buy it. Well, because that would then move the money out of the circle.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just a bubble. And I know bubble is like a hot term that people loved. It's a buzzword, but that's actually what's going on right now. Because it's unfinished. AI is unfinished. ChatGPT is not actually an active chat. It's not actively thinking, because what's hidden is it's actually got its entire conversation with you, but you don't see it. It's all actually there, and all of its processing information, and it can constantly reference its past thoughts.
Yeah.
because it's actually just one giant text document that it's constantly analyzing.
Yeah.
Instead of actively thinking about the next thing you said, it's referencing everything that's been said up till now against that new thing.
Yeah.
It's far more archaic than you think. And it's not a finished product. So that's why it sucks. That's why it keeps being goofy. And maybe one day it won't be.
Yeah.
But we're not there. But these companies think that if they wait until the product is finished, then they're going to miss some sort of ride.
The problem is they're trying to brute force a lot of this stuff. And the reason that they need more and more processing power is because it's a very inefficient. The very idea of it is very inefficient. You are teaching a bunch of like Boolean values, yes or no questions. It's like, hey, does this look like a bird? No. Actually, yes, this is a bird. Try again 10 million times. Is this a bird? I think so. It's like, I do this a million times, and changing all of those like small nodes takes like, it's like so much processing power that like they've bought up all the RAM. That's part of the problem that I'm concerned about the Steam Deck is because RAM is getting very expensive now, because not only
it didn't used to be. It used to be so cheap.
it was so cheap, not like a month ago. Not a month ago, it was the cheapest it's ever been. Now, all of a sudden, AI is buying up more graphics cards for AI processing, and at the same time, like all these different servers are also upgrading all their servers because they need to eventually.
Well, here's what's really going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to crash. The technology will still get developed by someone.
Yeah.
But it's going to crash. They've built all this infrastructure, all these data centers. They're going to go to waste. Because what's going to happen, the variety of things are going to happen. Communities are going to get fed up. Giant data center goes up, ruins their whole community, gets rid of all their water.
Yeah.
Right now there's a total movement about electricity prices because all the electricity is being funneled into these money sinks because that's what they are. They don't make money.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, it's going to create jobs. No, it isn't, because only like 3 guys are needed to run this entire football field-sized building, right? And they're going to... it drives up power prices, drives up utility prices, drives up water prices. Everything gets worse. And it's going to get worse. And then it's going to crash. The bubble's going to pop. None of it's going to be able to be financed. It's all going to get abandoned. And then things will get better because the technology isn't bad.
Yeah.
It's just not there. And it's overinvested.
Yeah, it's overinvested in. And we don't have the brain computers yet. We're not using them in action. I don't know if you know this. We actually do have brain cheese computers now.
Really?
We have like CPU computers made from like neurocells.
That's super cool.
It's very interesting.
Well, that's where it's going to have to go, because I was thinking about this the other day when I was talking to someone about the idea of organic technology, right? Because it's always treated as really creepy. But the reality is that the reason our brains are cool is they are just computers, but they're self-repairing, self-sustaining.
Yeah.
They can do a lot of work that, at the end of the day, something made of a hard material that's not self-repairing, not self-sustaining, it has a lifespan. It's going to wear down, right? It may take a long time, but it's going to wear down.
Yeah.
Whereas organic things are malleable. They can self-repair.
Yeah.
They can do a lot of things that hardware can't. And so for technology to reach the point that we're trying to go, eventually wetware is going to have to be the way.
Yeah, and if you know how they teach the artificial intelligence, it works the same way brains do. That's the theory of it. It's a bunch of like small nodes just pinging each other whenever something happens. It's based off of neurological research. So it will fit much better into this mold, because the problem currently is we're trying to like coerce like ones and zeros into like decimal places,
right?
Which has always been very bad. Was like, it's never been good. If you ever hear floating point operations, it's a headache for a lot of engineers because it's always wrong on computers. For the longest time, people have not actually figured out an accurate way to do it. Because if you add 0.01 plus 0.03, I might get 0.04000001 for some reason.
Yeah, the thing is that we created hardware out of metals and rare earths and things like that, and we programmed with that in mind. Now we're trying to make something that is designed for wetware. It's something that can modify itself, right? And there's a limit on how much some metals or some rocks can modify themselves compared to our brains, which can create new neural pathways, grow new things to accommodate new experiences.
To explain very clear, because all processors do right now is they're a light switch. They only go on and off, and it's just a million of those. That's all computers are these days. And it's like the idea of having like a brain actually doing the processing is so much more, it fits the needs and is more able to kind of move itself around. It's more flexible to the needs of an AI.
Well, because an AI, at that point, you're just programming a person.
Yeah.
And that gets into some crazy ethics that I think is far and beyond the mission statement of this episode, which was to talk about the Steam shits. And I think that those are some hot shits. I'm excited.
I'm also excited.
I think it'll be cool. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm interested to see how it's received. But I think they learned a lot of lessons from the Steam Deck, which means I think they're going to have an even better release than the Steam Deck did.
I think they also learned a lot of lessons from the original Steam machine. I don't know if you remember that.
Only a little bit, yeah. I didn't really engage with it.
They're putting their own foot forward, and they're making sure that they have control. And it's not confusing to the average consumer. That was the biggest concern of the original Steam machine. They were just trying to sell PCs, and the technology for most of your games to work was not there. There was just the promise that maybe some games would be built for it.
Well, I have nothing else to say. If you made it to the end, hopefully you thought any of this was interesting. It was sort of just a back and forth between two different kinds of people engaging with the product. But if you have anything interesting to say, please let us know in the comments below. Who knows if we're going to be able to, it's reaching the holidays. We've had a number of events happen, so we've been somewhat inconsistent with our episodes, but we will be back with even more. Did you have something to say?
I'm very excited about this and what it means for the future. I hope you guys are. I really hope this means like a major change in the gaming space.
I think it will. Whether it's immediate or long term, we'll see. But I think that it's sort of inevitable. It's just whether this will probably accelerate it, I think. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.